Hello, everybody. Welcome back to MasterAdvisor. Today is October 26th. This is episode number 79. First of all, happy early Halloween to everyone, too, because I know we won't see you before then. But we're going to be talking about booking villas today, including why some consumers really love villas and what they can do for you. We also have a sponsor to get to. We really have a packed episode today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I just want to remind everyone who is new here that there are a couple things that you can do to improve these live episodes for you. And the first is you can switch into speaker view on your Zoom by toggling that button on the top right of your screen. And the second is that you should open the chat on the bottom right. And we're going to keep that open through the episode today and take as many questions and comments as we go along through the next 45 minutes or so. We'll also be dropping some links in there that are always relevant that we'll talk about. So you can open that, keep an eye on that. Hopefully we can incorporate some of your questions, some of your comments throughout the next 45 minutes or so. Speaking of links, I do want to drop the link to our YouTube page in the chat right now. And that's the place where you'll be able to rewatch this episode later on if you choose to. And then you could also watch all of our previous 78 episodes on demand for free whenever you want on that page. There really is a ton of content on there. We've done a lot of these episodes, a lot on service fees. Our last episode was about working with BDMs. So if you do have some time and you want to get educated, you can head over there, subscribe to the channel, like the videos. All of those interactions really continues to help us bring you these episodes every couple of weeks. So yeah, we'll drop the link to the chat in the chat right now. And the last thing before we get started, we're quickly approaching the end of the year. Next week will be beginning in November, which is kind of wild, to be honest. I did want to announce we'll only have 2 more of these sessions before we wrap up 2023. I'm sure you'll be getting emails about them, but just to have them on your calendar, those will be on November 16th and December 14th. And we have a couple of really exciting topics planned, a couple of advisors that we're really excited to have on this program. So keep an eye out for that. We're really excited for those last 2. And yeah, we're really excited to finish out the rest of the year with everybody on this show. All right. So we have a really great travel advisor with us today. But before we introduce her, I do want to introduce our sponsor. We have Allison Treen here. She's a Villa Marketing Supervisor from Villas of Distinction to tell us a little bit about Villas of Distinction and sort of set the stage for the conversation we're going to have in the next 45 minutes or so.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel, so much. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm working?
Yep, you're good.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. As Daniel said, my name is Allison Treen. I'm the marketing supervisor at Villas of Distinction. I'm stepping in today for Steve Lassman, our vice president. I'm sure some of you know Steve. He's always on the road traveling, and unfortunately, he's traveling today. So he did want to send his best. But in the meantime, I'm really excited to be here with you and introduce Laura Salas, who is a great partner of Villas of Distinction. If you are not familiar with Villas of Distinction, we are a full service luxury villa rental provider. We operate really across the world, and I could talk about Villas of Distinction all day, but I know we're here to talk to Laura too, and really excited to have her. Laura comes to us from Court Travel in Charlotte, part of the Virtuoso Travel Network, as well as Aspire. And Laura has booked with us for years from small to large groups. She's really the perfect person to talk today about clients who may be great for a villa versus those who may prefer a hotel. So, that's one of the questions we also see a lot is, is my client, should it be villa? Should it be hotel? So we're excited to have Laura here to share more. She's, again, an amazing travel advisor and partner. And thank you, Laura, for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. Yeah, and Laura, we're so happy to have you with us today. I know Allison gave us a little introduction to you, but I'd love if you could just take a couple minutes, introduce yourself to the audience. I mean, how many years have you been in travel? What do you specialize in? And yeah, what's how is business and everything?
Hi,
Hi.
like they said, I'm Laura Salas. I'm based in Charlotte. I've been working in the travel industry since 2016. I started right out of college, actually. I was an intern here at our agency in Uptown Charlotte and loved it. And I'd never want to do anything else because it's fun. And I love to plan, and that's just what I'm best at. And I also really like to travel. So yeah, I started in 2016, so I'm on my 7th year. yeah, things have obviously changed since then. The pandemic happened while we were here, and luckily I was able to keep my job during the pandemic and see how things have changed now that we're out of it and moving forward.
Yeah.
I specialize in luxury travel internationally mainly, probably 90% international. And I focus on FIT travel planning. So full service too. We do flights, hotels, villas, tours, transport, all of the things that can be involved with travel. And yeah, I think that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, Laura, again, thanks so much for joining us. I do want to ask before we get into villas, like you're one of the first people I have had on this program who pursued this career right out of school. I'm just curious, I mean, how did you learn that this career could be a possibility for you? And like, what was your introduction to a travel advisor career?
Yeah, it's weird, right? You never meet it. And most travel advisors are like, 50 plus, but it's becoming a younger demographic within Virtuoso, at least. My goal was always to work in luxury hotels. I wanted to be a general manager, and I studied international business and management with the hopes of that. And in Charlotte, I went to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And so we're within like close to Uptown. There's really no luxury properties within the Charlotte region. So I reached out to Virtuoso whenever I was in college and knew I wanted to work for a Virtuoso property. And they linked me with this travel agency that's been here. The agency owner has been here for 30 years. And so we linked up. I started as an intern, just like doing filing and helping just around the office. And then, yeah, I like selling luxury travel. I like to sell stuff too. And that's one thing as a general manager of a hotel, you don't really get to do that. It's a lot different of a position. That's still I mean, I'm only 29 years old. So, that's still in the works maybe, but I like what I do. Like I said, as a general manager or any type of, working for any type of hotel or tour company, you don't get to travel for fun reasons. And I get to do that with this job. So I don't see me wanting to change anytime soon.
Eh, but it is interesting because I know you mentioned you're a certain age and you've only had, I think, 7 years, you said, but you've definitely seen a very low point in the travel industry during those first few months of COVID. And now it seems like we're definitely
We're at
at
a
a
high.
high point. Yeah. So you have seen a couple of ends of the spectrum when it comes to business for travel agencies. So you've definitely lived many years in the travel industry.
Yeah, I mean, 2019 was a fantastic year for travel, and we were all thinking, I think everybody was on the same page, like 2020 is going to be the best year for travel, especially luxury travel. And then, it was the worst year ever for travel. And then 2021 was continually bad. But then, yeah, like last fall, I think, is when we really started to see a huge increase in demand. Because after all the COVID regulations lifted and everything, things started changing as I mentioned before, like since last fall, it hasn't slowed down for us. And we don't see it slowing down for next year either, which is great. It's good. It's busy, but it's good.
Yeah.
Good business for sure.
Yeah. And hope if we have some time at the end, maybe we can talk about some of the destinations that might be trending. But I do want to start getting into villas because I know that's why everybody's here. Villas seems like a niche product to me, and I know a lot of advisors, a lot of them have introductions to villas, a lot of them don't have introduction to villas. When did you first start selling villas or considering selling villas as part of like your regular interactions with your clients?
Uh, it's always been on the table, like everybody's always like, well, we have a large group. Is renting a home or renting a villa in a destination wherever a good option? I think that it was really introduced to me whenever I got to travel to New Zealand on a fam trip in 2018. And one of my first years, I was still really new to the industry. And that's whenever I got to visit and like tour and inspect villas, which Villas of Distinction has a great collection in New Zealand as well. But that's a destination where you don't really expect to sell villas, but they're so remote. And some of the destinations, it makes total sense to have like a private home. And on that trip, I was with a group and we had a villa for like 2 nights. And it was really cool because we had a private chef. Everybody got to go to their own room, get dressed, but it was super comfortable and everybody really connected on that specific stay. And, that's really cool. You feel like you're in someone else's house. You feel like you're in a home that is yours. And that was when I was like, okay, there's definitely potential for me to sell this type of product, but also it's so special. It can be for groups, families, friends, wherever. I mean, whatever it needs to be. But that's when it started for me. I think.
Yeah, that's interesting that your first experience you mentioned. I mean, was surprising about it, how comfortable it seemed, how
Yeah, like you come down,
yeah,
someone's cooking in a kitchen. It's not like you have to get dressed up to go to a fancy restaurant or anything. So it was one of the best meals I've ever had, to be honest. But um, and you can talk with the chef, and you can, chat with the other people that are staying there. There was like 6 of us. We each had our own room, each had our own bathroom, but we could go sit out on the porch while we waited for dinner or anything like that. It wasn't just like you're sitting in a lobby or sitting in a restaurant waiting. It's much more comfortable. And I think that's a great way for travelers to connect with each other too. It's different than being in separate hotel rooms and just meeting in the lobby.
yeah. How big of a part of your business is villas now? Like, I assume that hotels still will make up a bigger, larger majority of your bookings, but I'm just curious. I mean, how often do you get inquiries about villas? I mean, what percentage of your business is really driving people into villas?
Uh, I'll have to think about the percentage part, but
Yeah,
I think that after the pandemic specifically, people really started considering, multi-gen families gathering in one destination, a beautiful destination versus like coming to grandma's house for Christmas. Everybody was tired of being at home, but they didn't want to stay in a hotel. That's when we really saw a huge demand for villas. And it's continued as we came out of the pandemic, to see groups thinking like, you know what, we've done hotel stays here with our family and friends and stuff. We'd rather do something different, and just have a place to chill. They can work remotely now. It's a lot more common than prior. And that's been a huge, change in the industry. People can stay longer in places because they don't have to worry about vacation time as much. And with a villa, you just kind of make a new home base somewhere else, not your house. So I think it has definitely increased, especially after the pandemic, just in all realms of group travel. And we don't handle large groups. It's small groups, like larger families or something, but not like over like 20 people, So it makes it a nice vacation for people. And we're seeing a lot of people wanting to travel longer, which is good. And they can stay in one place longer versus prior to the pandemic. You might only have, 12 nights to go to Italy and you want to see this, this, and this, versus now it's more like, what, we don't want to move around as much. We want to stay in one place. We might want to do like one city, but we're ready to go to, the coast or something for longer.
All right, so let's talk about, you mentioned groups, and I want to talk about a little bit of what kind of clients are going to be good for this kind of travel, for villas type of travel. You mentioned groups, you said smaller groups, like less than 20 people. So maybe between like 8 and 20 people seem like a good amount. Like, is that typically what your bookings are? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of couples trips, you won't find, I mean, at least for us, like more than 5 couples that can find a week that
Yeah.
works for everybody.
Yeah.
That's like the most challenging thing, finding the whole group, the whole family that can take off the time to go to do that. But yeah, we see a lot of couples trips, a lot of friends trips to celebrate a 40th birthday or a 60th birthday, or a grandparent wanting to celebrate a large, like a 80th birthday, and have all the grandkids come, all of the kids come. And when it gets into Multigen, that's when you really start adding up people, because there's always a lot of little kids, it seems like,
Yeah.
which honestly makes so much more sense for a villa than a hotel, because connecting rooms for families with more than 2 kids, it's so difficult to find these days and to guarantee. That's why a villa is fantastic for that. Even a family with, like I said, 4 to 5 kids, which is popular, it's easier to find a house for them to celebrate, Christmas in the Caribbean versus a room in a hotel that connects, or a 2-bedroom suite. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows, other advisors realize, like, it's hard to find connecting rooms that are guaranteed at time of booking, but also finding them that if you have multiple families or multiple kids of different ages, it's harder to find these days, and it's harder to guarantee versus a villa. It's not. So that works. And just clients that, want more space in general, to spread out or just really immerse in a destination. And they don't feel like they need to see every single thing there, but they're just happy with spending a week in Provence, enjoying wine, often by a nice pool. That's good enough for me.
Yeah. And I know we'll talk a little bit about destinations in a second, but we chatted earlier in the week, Laura, and you mentioned that you have some bookings that will be like, for example, a multi-gen group, like the grandparents will book 2 or 3 weeks at a villa, and they'll have like different family groups come in each week. Like it seems like a really great way to be able to play host on a vacation too.
Yeah, for sure. I had a family this past summer. It was a great booking, but also just a really cool idea. They bought the villa, or they rented the villa for like 2 weeks, 2 full weeks, 2 Saturday to Saturdays. And the first week they invited their kids and their grandkids, which they only had, it was like a 4-bedroom villa. They had their 2 sons and their wives, and then their like 2 grandkids, small, like babies, like less than 2. And that was the first week. And then the second week they invited just 2 other couples to come spend, a week in Provence. They did bike tours with the couples, but when it was with the family, they just chilled at the villa. They didn't feel like they had to do any activities. The kids had the pool to play in. And they had a rental car so they could go out to eat dinners and that kind of thing. But it was also a great way for them to divide the cost of the villa. They paid for the full week with the family, but the other couples split the week with them. So it's a really great way to, take advantage of, a home base in a beautiful destination. Which, I think that sounds fun. I would like to do that.
I know there's a lot of things when you're in this industry that you realize sound really, really fun. So this is definitely one of them. So you mentioned something that I just want to make sure everyone on the call, especially the ones who maybe haven't worked with villas before, is aware of, is that most of these blocks, you're booking Saturday through Saturday. That's probably the usual week-long block that you can get on the calendar. Like you're not going to be booking 1 or 2 night stays. It's going to be a week-long, usually Saturday to Saturday, right?
Typically, yeah, it does depend on the destination, but for the heavy hitters that people typically think of, like, a villa stay would be great, you're going to see Saturday to Saturdays required. Occasionally, you can get approval for a 5-night stay, but never in most situations would there be like, stay here 2 nights. That's not it. And that's not what you need a villa for either. Because you can't really get acquainted with a full home or a full apartment within 2 days. It's just not needed either.
Then you also mentioned, and I know we're skipping ahead a little bit, but you mentioned that the booking window is maybe a little longer than you would have for a typical FIT with a hotel stay. Like you're going to be wanting to, because it's the nature of the bookings, because of how unique these properties are, and you mentioned that some people really fall in love with these properties, so there's high demand for them too. Like you're going to want to book a little farther out for the villas as you would a hotel.
Yeah, definitely. I think that one key to have with villas is to make sure that there's flexibility with dates. If a client isn't flexible with dates, say they definitely want to travel over Christmas and New Year's with their family, they need to book that at least minimum a year in advance. A year and a half would be better. There's going to be more options available. And it is more typical with a villa or a beautiful home where people will fall in love with the house. They will want to go back every year for Christmas or every year for Thanksgiving or whatever it might be, whatever holiday or whatever week in the summer works for them. Like the week of the 4th, people love going, staying a whole week somewhere for the 4th. Those types of dates really sell out really quickly, especially for the larger homes that, the grandpa might want to go there every year. He opens it up to the whole family and they can book in whenever it works out. But the grandpa and the grandma will be there all week. So come visit. That really is more common, I think, with not looking at hotels. Like people do fall in love with hotels for sure, but it's hard to get the same hotel room every time you go. Versus a home, you're going to get that specific home when you book it. And that just means the inventory is not as big either. So like if that's the home you want, then we need to book it whenever we can. Whenever the owner is going to allow villas of distinction to get the inventory, or that week out of the year. It should be booked, especially if someone wants to do it.
Yeah, and I know this might be a question for, I mean, Allison and maybe whatever other villa company advisors might be aware of, but we have a question in the chat. Just, I mean, how far in advance do bookings typically open for villas? Is it about a year and a half? Is that what it usually is?
I think it really depends on where and the owner and when they allow it. And Allison would probably be able to answer it better than me. But I know for Christmas, and that those 2 weeks out of the year, you can definitely book a year out in advance. I've seen some villas book 2 years in advance, depending on where they are and what they are. But I think it depends on the property. But more than likely, yeah, definitely more than a year out can be booked with villas, which is a difference between hotels too. Hotels, they change their rates all the time. Villas, not so much either. It depends on the availability, but they're going to have their weekly rates per month or per season already listed every year.
All right. Yeah, and then I see Allison jumped in there too. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what destinations villas might be perfect for. We can talk a little bit about after, I mean, what maybe villas what destinations they don't lend themselves to. But I know we had the conversation earlier in the week, and some of the destinations you're describing and the way you were describing them just made, like, it clicked in my head how perfect some of these destinations were for villas. And I imagine you get demand like across the world when it comes to what destinations you're selling and villas. But for you, Laura, what destinations really are super popular when it comes to booking villas?
I think the best type of vacation that villas make the most sense for almost anybody is any type of ski vacation. I think that when you go skiing and if you've been skiing before, knowing that the extra space is fantastic, but skiing is one of the best family vacations that people can take, and they typically go every year. Finding the mountain that they like, the ski resort that they like, and finding a beautiful condo or villa or home in that area is just perfect. They feel comfortable there. They know what the process is going to be like, and they love it. But having the space, a kitchen, skiing, you're skiing all day, you'll get back, I don't know, like 4 o'clock is when the lifts typically stop, and you typically go to bed earlier in these situations. You don't necessarily want to go out for a large meal every single night. You're exhausted typically, and kids especially are exhausted. So having a separate room that they can go to bed early in, parents can enjoy, wine by a fire in the evening and not have to worry about being as quiet. But also just the extra space to just relax is perfect for ski or perfect for villa stays. Hawaii is a big destination too that we see people trending more towards villas for a few reasons. The space is one. I know that if you have ever booked any property on Maui, specifically the Four Seasons Maui, that getting a pool chair by the pool is a huge thing. People go down at 4 a.m. to put a towel down so that they have a pool spot, which is ridiculous, especially when you pay the prices to stay there. If you have a villa on Maui, you'd have your own private pool, and you don't have to worry about other people at all, which is fantastic. And that's a destination where you're going out to eat every night, regardless if you're staying in a resort. You're not eating at the same resort every night. You're almost always going to have a car rental. So having your own house on an island in Hawaii is fantastic. Same with the Caribbean. And some Caribbean islands are, super great to work with when it comes to villas, because you have your private pool, you have a private yard, you have private access to a beach, and you're not with hundreds of other people. It's way more special. And we see a lot of people wanting to do villas in Italy, in south of France too, but Italy is super popular across the board. Anywhere in Italy, like Tuscany is huge, Amalfi Coast is huge, Lake Como. It depends. You don't typically see villas being as popular in city stays. So a good combo or good example of that is like a family might be a great fit for a small house in Tuscany or Amalfi, but they're going to fly in and out of Rome. So they can do 2 or 3 nights pre and post the villa stay in Rome at a beautiful hotel. They don't need a condo or villa in Rome. You can do that, but they don't need it for 2 nights. They can do a hotel stay and then go to a villa, rest and relax the rest of the time, and then, leave from there. but similar to a cruise situation. People like to just have one unpacking situation. They might go to a city before they join the cruise. Same with a villa.
All right, yeah, the ski resorts being a good choice for villas makes sense to me. The one that really surprised me when we were talking about was Hawaii, because Hawaii seems like such an iconic like resort and hotel destination. But you did say that a lot of your clients really love staying in villas on those islands.
Yeah, I think it's way more special, especially with families, because Hawaii is very strict on how many people can be in a room. And there are laws that they have to abide by. So it's hard for a family of 5 they have to definitely have 2 hotel rooms. But if they're small children, 4 or 5, like a mom does not want them to be in a connecting room, but they do want the extra space, so having also the laundry service and access, like having just a house where you can chill. The kids can go to bed early, they can play out on the beach or at the pool all day, is good. And then you can wash their swimsuits after and not have to pack like 50 pairs of swimsuits,
Yeah,
which is
I
so
know.
good.
Yeah, I know that's what we spoke about earlier in the week too. Is that's a big perk of villas, is being able to have the laundry on site and being able to not have to pack for a 10-day stay or a 14-day stay. So it's good for
And
people
with
to
a
know.
baby too, like having access to a kitchen, not just like a little mini fridge, is really helpful. And these days we're seeing a lot of people traveling with their nannies as well, having an extra space for them to have, their privacy, but also they're taking care of the family. So that's a great perk in villas for sure.
So let's talk about a little more of those perks. I see a question from Lisa again. That might be one for Allison, just about sort
Yeah,
of
I'm not sure about that
yeah.
one.
Yeah, so you mentioned we've been talking for the last 20 minutes or so, Laura, and you mentioned a couple things like private chefs, drivers, things like that. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about how you as the advisor is able to customize a stay at a villa for your client. I don't know how many advisors who haven't booked a villa before would be aware of that, but there's a lot you can do to enhance their stay within the confines of the actual villa. Can we talk a little bit about how you can add value, maybe with private chefs or private drivers? Like what kind of process is that when you're dealing with this kind of booking?
Yeah, and that's why Villas of Distinction itself is a great partner, because they almost always offer a concierge service with every villa rental that you might have. So with that concierge service, you can plan things like your transport to and from the airport, or transfers wherever you might need to go, a driver for, taking you to wherever they might want to tour that day, or having just a driver at disposal. That can all be prepaid, or it can be paid on the spot with Villas of Distinction through the concierge service. They'll have a contact while they're traveling too. So it's almost like you have your own concierge, like you are just going down to the front desk of a hotel. Instead, you can just text this person and it'll be, perfect for them. Yeah, the chef service is nice. So like if you're in a villa and depending on the destination, sometimes this chef service daily is included, whether it be for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast and dinner, depending. I've had some situations where they could choose which days they wanted to include dinner. Some nights, if they wanted to go out, they could include the lunch instead. It just depends. But that's a huge perk, because I mean, it can be totally customized. Think about if you have like a super bad allergy to a food, like it's really hard to convey that to a resort, especially a larger resort. But if you have a private chef and you're allergic to, I don't know, nuts, they're not going to have any nut ever there. So
Yeah.
it can be way more specialized. And especially like, say you have a picky child that will not eat certain things, you won't even have to deal with that. We can let the chef know before you even arrive, they won't have anything like that. Or if they have a birthday, like we can let them know, like, hey, we need a birthday cake there on this day and with this many candles. Like you can do that, and they'll have balloons too. And like other things, like whenever I have people travel for Christmas, it's always worth asking the villa management or concierge service, like, can we decorate for Christmas for the kids? Because, they're not going to be at their normal house, but they're celebrating Christmas. So we've had people put up Christmas trees for families before, and destinations. It can be really customized. Of course, there's a cost associated with it, but it is what it is when it comes to stuff like this. It makes the experience even more special. And that goes for hotel bookings too, but with a villa, it's just for that family.
Yeah.
And that makes it really nice. And then laundry service, like I think I told you this the other day, but like specifically in Jamaica with Villas of Distinction, a lot of those villas already include daily laundry service, daily housekeeping, bartenders, chef service daily, all the food. You might just pay a supplement for certain types of food on the spot, and the clients when they arrive can go over the menu for the week with the chef, and that's already included in the villa stay. So it's almost like an all-inclusive resort, but just for your family of 10. And it's super customized. Like if someone wants, I don't know, pasta one night, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I mean, for this customization, because I know that's where a lot of advisors think they can drive value. And we had an advisor, Margaret Sully on earlier this year, who spoke about how she customized a lot of vacations too, like that. Is it a matter of you communicating with the supplier, whether it's Villa of Distinction or another villa, like that's how you get it done? Like, are you speaking
Yes.
to villa owners, or are you speaking to one contact at a supplier?
Mainly one contact. So with Villas of Distinction, I work with the same person every time I book a villa. He's my contact there. So I typically in the planning process and picking the right villa, I let them know everything that I know about the client. The key is to know your client and to know that what they want and what's a good fit for them. I relay that to my contact at Villas of Distinction, tell them, here's what they want to spend. This is the one we're looking at, but if you think of anything else, let me know. We'll give the options to the client, let them decide, and then we go from there. Once the villa is booked and under deposit, that's when we can work directly with the concierge. And Villas of Distinction has a team of concierges that you can work with, and they usually will send you like a form, like, are there any allergies? What's their preferred drink at night? And all this type of stuff to help customize it. But again, it goes down to knowing who you're working with and what they like, and what's going to make their vacation special. And that's where the value of a travel advisor with any type of planning makes it extremely valuable to the consumer.
How do you get to know your clients so well? I mean, you've been doing this for 7 years. I know this is your career, and I imagine you do have some insight into how you can sort of draw those details out of clients. And I know each advisor does it their own way, but I'm just curious. I mean, for you, when you're talking to a client, what stuff do you ask? What stuff do you make sure you know in order to be able to customize the best way you can?
When we start working with clients, we send out a questionnaire. It's super detailed. And it asks questions like, when you're on vacation, do you like to wake up early? Do you like to sleep in? Do you go to the gym? All these types of things, and a lot of questions. And it's fun to fill out as a family, like, what do we like to do? Where have you been in the past? What have you liked about the travel in the past? What have you not liked about the travel in the past? We have everybody fill that out first before we start working on anything for them. And then we follow up with a more detailed conversation. Okay, so you're looking at going to Japan. This is what I experienced in Japan. This is what I think you would like, but tell me a little bit about why you want to go to Japan. What are you hoping to see? How do you think that you should experience it? And that kind of thing. It's all about communication, really. But yeah, before we even start the planning process, we ask a lot of questions so that we know that we're a good fit too, because we can't just help anybody, like we're not a good fit for everybody. Not everybody is looking for a super custom vacation either. And that's how all travel agencies vary, but we are very customized in our agency, and we try to build relationships. A lot of our clients are repeat business for years. Like since I started working here, I plan for the same families every year. I know their family. I've watched their kids grow up. They go to college now. And my boss, who's done this for 30 years, she's planned for generations, so it's all about, doing a good job the first time and then them coming back so that you can learn more about it.
That's great to remember. So we have a little over 10 minutes left. If anyone has a question for Laura, please drop it in the chat. I have one, Laura, just of what you were talking about, and it just sort of caught my ear, and I'm just very, very curious. I mean, if you had a family who was booking a villa stay, and how can you personalize it if they did say they do go to the gym, like you asked how many times if you go to a gym on vacation. If someone was say they wanted to go to the gym every day, I'm just curious, I mean, how would you be
Then we
able to
need to look for
customize
a
that?
villa that has a gym.
Okay, and
Because
that's pretty common.
yeah, and especially in the Caribbean. But a lot of them, they might, some might have really nice gyms, or some of them might just have like a Peloton in the closet. So if that's really important to somebody, they should let us know, obviously, but that's something that we can ask them. But another question would be like, do you run? Are you looking for a place where you can go out and run every day? Because that that helps us pick a destination. There are some places where you might not want to go run every day, but there's some that it's super easy to do. So yeah, those are all things to like ask, and knowing your client and knowing what they like, and if you've planned a trip for them before and say they loved this specific destination for this reason, that's something to keep in mind when picking a villa for them. So yeah, but yeah, a lot of villas do have gyms, which is just cool in general. And a
Yeah,
lot of them
it's
have like
very
game
cool.
rooms for kids, like
Yeah.
with, I don't know, like Pac-Man or machine thing. Like that's cool. And kids love that, especially teenagers.
Yeah. And I know I've written some editorial on villas across the US. I know some of them have some crazy setups outside, like their own lazy rivers, like their own, like seems like a water park by themselves. So
Yeah.
you can definitely get pretty special. We have a question in the chat, Laura. I mean, we have somebody asking about your favorite villa, and I know you probably experience a lot, and I'm just curious if you had one on the top of your head.
The coolest villa that I've looked at, and I try to promote because it's a great sale, but it's in Anguilla. It's great for big families. Like say you have a family with like 27 people, which that's not uncommon. That's my family, for instance. I have the grandparents, and then they had a ton of grandkids that have a ton of kids. They're trying to get together. This one is great because it's like it's one villa, but it's two separate units. So there's like 5 bedrooms in one, 6 or 7 bedrooms in the other. There is a gym. It includes everything, all meals, all beverages, all services, maid service, laundry service. It already includes the food prices too. It's in Anguilla. It's a part of Annie Villas, and Villas of Distinction has it. I think it holds 26 people. But what's really cool about it is that both houses have their own pool, have their own like bedrooms and everything, their own living room. So I think it works out well when the family, wants to do a vacation together, but they might not really love each other. They're trying to stay separate, but trying to like, do dinners and stuff together, but like they might not want to see each other as soon as they wake up. That's great. You could put like all of the older siblings in one, and then, all the grandkids in the other for noise purposes, or if, you got the one cousin that the kids go to bed at like 6 p.m. and like nobody else is going to bed at 6 p.m. because the sun's still out. They stay in that house and the other one stay in this one. And it's a really beautiful villa. That one's good. Yeah. So.
All right, yeah. So I see Janice's question. I think that's what we're planning on getting to next. But I do just want to wrap up sort of that. I mean, why consumers choose. Just some notes I took. I mean, the remote destinations are great. People who want to be together, but not necessarily amongst other people. Remote workers have a great time with villas. People going to Hawaii, ski vacations. So I think there really is a big population of consumers who would be perfect for this. When I spoke to you earlier in the week, Laura, my thought in my head was that you would have a task, and advisors would have this task of introducing the possibility of villa travel to their clients. What Janice asked, what are the key tips to introducing villas to your clients? And I guess that's my question too. I mean, what are some of the most common questions you get when you do pitch a villa stay to clients who maybe not necessarily have either gone or considered it before?
Yeah, and it's not for everybody, right? So like it depends on the conversation, but say you have somebody's coming to you and they are thinking about traveling to, I don't know, Jamaica. I'll just throw Jamaica out. they're thinking, we want to do a group trip. We have 3 couples. We're looking at an all-inclusive resort, but it's not really that nice, and that's super common. The resorts aren't the best there, but the villas are really great there. What you could always throw out, like, have you ever thought about this, like renting a home? It doesn't have to be an Airbnb, because we don't work with Airbnb or VRBO, but there are villas that have these services included. Have you ever thought about this? It sounds like it might be a good fit for you. And asking questions like, how are you hoping to experience this destination or this vacation? Because there's key things, like they're just wanting to spend time together. Staying in separate hotel rooms for a week is not spending time together. So there's key takeaways from an initial conversation with a client that might trigger in your mind, have you thought about this? Because this could be a really good fit for you. So yeah, always keeping it in mind for certain things, because you never know what people might be interested in. And then usually when families travel together and do a big trip like that, they talk to everybody about it. So, and they post pictures and everybody's like, oh, where are you? Like, and that kind of thing. So that's a huge, once you get a good villa booked, you'll hear about it. People will share that experience with their friends.
Are there any, I had a question about Airbnb too. You mentioned it, and I think everyone knows about Airbnb in the travel advisors community at this point and what comes along with it. But do you ever get consumers who are confused about it, or confuse a villa stay with like a homestay? Yeah, I mean, that's a common thing?
Yeah, and I think that it's a mindset, usually not in all cases, because there are really nice Airbnbs too, but like in most cases, people look at Airbnb and VRBO as like a budget friendly type of situation. That is not why we look at villas for people. Sometimes it can be cost saving for sure, but that's not really the driver behind why we would recommend it. We don't work with those companies because we can't vouch for the service. Anybody can put their house on Airbnb. We don't like that. And we like Villas of Distinction because they inspect their villas every so often. You know that they exist, you know that they're there, they're where they say they are, they have what they say they have, and that kind of thing. You have nobody to talk to when it comes to the other companies in that sense. And you also, as a travel advisor, don't get paid from those companies. So why would you work with them? But that's one thing. Like, you do see people like, why don't we just do an Airbnb? Like, okay, but don't you want to make sure that you have air conditioning, and like make sure that you have air conditioning? Like that shouldn't be a question really, in the sense that we're planning for. So that's we do get a lot of questions. I'm sure everybody does, because it's on every commercial that you see. Airbnb is like a huge, like if you have Apple TV, it's on every commercial. So it's like, but most people aren't looking for like a luxury stay in an Airbnb. Like I said, it's a mindset thing. And that's not really what we're planning for. And we want to make sure it's a good experience. Otherwise, we'll look at hotels for you. But yeah.
It is interesting. I mean, you mentioned luxury stay, and we did a couple sessions this year, and one about this new definition of luxury, or what you consider luxury. And 2 things that really stood out in my mind that seemed to fit villas perfectly. One was personalization. Luxury clients want a level of personalization with the amount of they're paying for vacations. And the other one was exclusivity. People want exclusive experiences, and it seems like staying at a villa is going to be a very exclusive experience. And it does seem like, I know you're a rich host agent, but a lot of luxury clients really would start leaning into this kind of experience, considering what they're looking for.
Yeah, exclusivity is key, I think, these days. Like, people want to do, and the next best thing in the next best place. Or like, everybody can go to Amalfi Coast, but did you have a villa in Positano? Did you stay in a private villa there? That's different. That's where it's like, oh, okay. And people talk about that stuff. People are like, oh yeah, we spent 2 weeks in the south of France in a beautiful home. Like, being able to talk about stuff like that is luxury for people, a lot of people. So yeah, I think that it comes down to also how you spend your time is luxury, and where. but I think being able to say, we had a private home here and it was amazing. The views were great. We had a private chef. And like I even say, like, that's the best meal of my life at a private villa in New Zealand, random. But like this chef was just, found by whoever owns the villa and their friends. And like, that was the most personalized meal I've ever had, but also delicious and super memorable because I'd never met the people that were staying in the villa with me either, which was weird, but that's not typical, but like, it was a great experience for me.
Yeah. So I do want to, I want to ask about destinations. I think that's what we'll wrap up on. One thing I don't want to miss, which I might have missed early in our conversation is, and you might have touched on it, Laura, is something you can do when it comes to that personalization is just getting groceries to clients seems really important. And you have the ability to do that working with your concierge.
Yeah, you can do it with a concierge service. And they usually, like I said, send out like a PDF or like a Word doc that you can fill out. And you can have your client fill it out too, or go over it with them and make the notes yourself. But yeah, you can pre-stock in a lot of these villas, which is huge. And you can do that with some hotels too. But, it's got to be hotels that have full kitchens and stuff. Whereas most villas do already have that. So yeah, having a kitchen stocked when you get there is like so cool. And then having, the basics where you don't have to go to the grocery store as soon as you get there. That is like so nice. It's pretty much like Instacart and which is just cool. And then if your villa does come with a private chef or you've hired a chef for certain meals, they'll come chat with you upon arrival. You're invited to go to the market with them if you want. You don't have to. And a lot of clients choose to do that because it's almost like a tour. But, going to the market with the chef, picking out what you're having for the rest of the week or certain nights of the week is really fun. And they know, the villa people obviously know, like, people are going to be eating here every meal. They don't have to, but in some destinations it's pretty remote, so you're going to have to. So yeah, I think that's a huge perk. Being able to just have your villas stocked with, Diet Coke, because, people are obsessed with Diet Coke. So like having that already there, you don't have to think about it. Like, that's fantastic. Who doesn't want that? I hate grocery shopping. So like, that's so cool to have someone do it for you.
All right, so I do want to wrap up, but I do want to ask you, because you mentioned the next best thing, and I'm not even talking from a villa's point of view right now, Laura. I'm just curious, as a frontline travel advisor, as someone who's talking to your clients on a regular basis, your luxury clients, do you have any destination in mind that is trending or that might be the next best thing? Like, we've heard over the last couple of years, it's been sort of a lot of different destinations. I remember at one point it was expeditions and then it was safaris. Like, do you have any ideas? Is there a next best thing coming that you're hearing from your clients?
Europe was super, super popular this summer. We're seeing people that have done that. They did the crowds this past summer. They want to do something different. And they don't want to pay what Europe is costing right now. We see a lot of people transition from that. We live on the East Coast. I don't know if everybody knows that, but we're seeing a lot of people transition to go to South Africa or East Africa and doing safaris in combination with the city stay like Cape Town or Nairobi, or even a beach stay in Tanzania. That is a great alternative, and it's not cheap, but it costs less than Europe in some cases. So it's like, okay, like, let's do that. The Galapagos too is a great alternative, and from Charlotte it doesn't take long to get there at all, versus flying somewhere else, and the flights are significantly cheaper to South America than to anywhere else on Earth.
Oh wow.
So that's nice. That's a great destination too. It's a once in a lifetime destination for most people. So I think that trips where you're focused maybe more on nature and wildlife, I see that trending a little bit heavy for next year. Asia is coming back too, which I'm very excited about. Asia has been like kind of off limits for the last few years. We're seeing a lot of people interested in doing Asia, which is it's really good for them too.
Where in Asia is it? I know Japan's been trending a lot amongst travelers. Is it Japan?
Japan is heavy.
Yeah,
because Japan just opened this year. Like, well, they opened last fall technically, but without restrictions this summer. a lot of people are still nervous to go this summer or didn't have the time to plan it for this summer. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that next year, which is great. We're seeing a lot of Thailand too, which is a huge savings compared to everywhere else. So and you can stay in really great places for less. So and that's a great place for villas too. A villa on an island off of Phuket, fantastic.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
It is interesting, and it is interesting to hear, because Europe was so packed last summer, and I know I saw the stories about the crowds in the airports, the crowds at these major tourist attractions. The Acropolis had to close because of the heat.
Yeah.
Like, it is interesting that it is having a little bit of a short-term effect, that people are opting to go elsewhere the next summer.
Well, like this is a great example. To fly economy to Europe, to round trip Rome next summer, July, it's like already, if we do the best flights, it's already like 2,300. That's economy per person. You can fly to South Africa, which is a longer flight, but you can fly there for 1,600 per person in economy. Business class is less to fly to South Africa than it is to Rome. So it's just, Europe is getting really expensive. People still are doing it and people are paying for it, but like they're getting tired of paying for it too. And whenever their money can go further in other places. Same for Asia. I mean, the flights are about the same to go to Asia than to Europe. That's an 8-hour flight versus 14-hour flight. So yeah, it depends. But Europe was really busy last summer, and a lot of people were annoyed by the crowds, annoyed by the heat. And they don't have to do that, like there's other options. So Europe will be there. We were going to see a huge increase for the Middle East this next year, but not anymore, unfortunately. It's a really sad situation. But all the cruise lines, everybody was really excited with Saudi opening and that kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see where that transition goes, because there are so many people focused on Middle East, so many tour companies, but I don't think that's going to happen for the next year, at least. So it'll be interesting to see where that transition goes and where those bookings migrate to.
Yeah, and listen, I know travel advisors are used to it now, like pivoting on a dime. So I can imagine that things will be pivoting if things do continue the way they are in the Middle East. But yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, Laura. So we are going to wrap up, but first I just want to thank you. I really had fun talking to you. I think it was a really educational last hour. So I really appreciate your perspective. One, as a advisor booking villas, and as a relatively new advisor to the industry, it's always nice to hear sort of a different perspective on things. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I really appreciate being asked to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And I also want to say thanks to Allison and Villas of Distinction too for helping us out today and for talking to us a little bit in the beginning. And thanks for everyone for coming out. I know everyone's incredibly busy these days, like Laura said, and I really appreciate you guys tuning into these every couple weeks. Again, we have 2 more until the end of the year, so hope to see you then. But yeah, until I see you all next time, I hope everyone stays safe and stays healthy, and I'll see you all pretty soon.